Well, hello, crew. We are back with another Made for Mars episode, and we are just so happy you could join us today as we continue our mission to create the most accurate Mars simulation and determine how humans will build a new life on the red planet. Can you just imagine that? Well, I'm your host, Meta Mona, and I have so much to share with you today. As some of you already know, we had a Discord AMA this week that happened on Wednesday with our founder, Hunter. On that AMA, Hunter introduced the resource chain and the updated Colonize Mars development timeline to you guys. Now, today, we're back for a deeper dive into the new features release and also the resource chain revisions. That's going to be exciting. So lots to cover with you guys. But as you know, I cannot take on this mission alone. So let me go bring Hunter on the show and have him help me dive deeper into these topics. Hi.
Hey,
How are
Mona.
you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you so much for coming back and joining me again this week, Hunter.
Yes, yes. Let's talk about it. I'm excited to talk about Resource Chain and the gameplay release and all the new stuff that's coming.
We have so much to cover, so I'm going to just jump right into it because this week, today's theme, as Hunter and I both said, is going to be Mars Resource Chain. All right, guys? And in our briefing segment, we're going to start with our briefing segment. We're going to talk to you about our new features release and also the resource chain revisions, as I said earlier. Then in our development segment, Hunter is going to do a live demo for us. I'm really excited about that. And he's going to show us the resource producer and Mars trader strategies. You don't want to miss that one. And lastly, as always, of course, we're going to have the week's challenge for you guys, but not before we announce last week's winners. So make sure you stay with us until the very end. But as always, you already know it. Please remember, this show is not a financial advice, is not a legal advice, is not a tax advice, though taxes are due next week, I think. Definitely not a relationship advice. I am not good with that one. Hunter and I are just two enthusiasts. We just love to talk about science, games, and the red planet. So be sure to do your own research as you already know it. All right, Hunter, let's hop into our first segment, which is our briefing segment. I do want to say this first. Next week is an exciting week, guys. Where is my sound effect? I need sound effects. Producer
Yeah,
needs sound effects. Horns, beep, beep. Next week, next episode, I'm going to have sound effects. But the foundational features of Colonize Mars will be released next week. Please tell me how excited you are about this.
it's been a long time, developing the game and getting things ready. The whole resource engine and all of the stuff under the hood has taken a long time for us to figure out how to
Yeah.
do. It turns out it's pretty difficult to simulate an entire Mars economy, but we're really excited to be towards the end of it. And next week is going to be great because everyone's going to be able to participate and see what it's like.
We have to give a huge shout out to our dev team as well. They've been working so diligently. A lot of times people don't understand how many people are behind these projects and just working day and night. So let's give a shout out to our dev team who've been really working hard on this. Hats off to you guys. So let me hop right in. The foundational features, we talked about this, you and I were talking earlier, is going to include the resource chain, hazards, and the specialties, right? So for the purpose of this segment, let's dial into the resource chain first. But before we do, for those viewers who are tuning in for the first time, can you help them understand again, what is the resource chain? Let's start with that.
Yeah, so just very simply, the resource chain is all of the different items on Mars, like water, fuel, food. And you can either mine these resources, you can also produce them with things like greenhouses, and they're realistic to Mars. So it's what you would actually do on Mars. And what we have here is our user interface, which also shows the flow of resources through the colony in a realistic flow as well. And your goal as you're playing the game is to maximize your efficiency of resource production.
Hmm.
And then those green bars at the top of the screen showcase that you have net positive production of resources. So your goal is to really get those green bars as high as you can.
Hmm. Now, I do want to get into the details on the revised resource chain as well. What was revised on the resource chain UI that we have here on the screen?
Yeah, so we really focused on two main things. The first one was the resource flow, and the second one was enabling deeper strategy. And thank you for everyone in closed beta and the community for helping us basically give feedback on these tools and make sure that we're catering to all of the needs of how to maximize sort of your strategy and gameplay. But for the resource flow, basically visualizing the net positive resources and also how resources flow through the colony was a really important improvement. And you'll see on the left side was our old UI, and it only surfaced the top level information. And we realized we needed to visualize it in a way that was a lot more intuitive. So that's why we arrived at basically a all-in-one place to manage your resource chain, and it's a visual dashboard, and that enables that deeper strategy.
Wow, I mean, so you really can see the resource flow here. It's a big difference actually to me. But more importantly, like you said, it's allowing us to work on that strategy a little bit deeper. Correct? It's taking us a few steps deeper than before.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of our design team in visualizing this in a way that's intuitive, and it looks nice. And I think that it's one of the things that makes us um, definitely a game worth playing. Is you feel like you're part of mission control when you are interacting with our game and when you're in there, and that's fun, I think, because we all want to go to Mars one day, and we want to kind of in our heads and sort of simulate that. And so we've done our the best we can to really visualize all the different ways that that can happen.
Yeah, of course. You also have, we have this image here of the old resource chain and then the new one. Help us understand the revisions here as well.
Yeah, so the two main revisions are we've aligned the resource chain to real science. And then the second one is that will enable us to improve the accuracy of the resource chain over time. So, in terms of real science, the production and consumption of every item on Mars is grounded in as much detail as we can in terms of the research of how we can actually get to those numbers. So, in the case of solar panels, we've done research on the location we're at on Mars and the dust and the distance from the sun and the surface area of the panels to get to the real power output, which you can kind of see in this graphic towards the bottom right. It has the formula that we're now using to calculate these things. And then the second thing, we're able to improve the resource chain over time because now it's grounded in real science. We can have, I think, really productive conversations with community members, scientists, researchers, engineers to help us build better technology to put into the simulation over time.
Wow, Hunter, this is really science based now. I mean, it's really reflecting on science, and I can see that we're gonna it can improve over time, right? And then also players get their share of resources.
That's exactly right. And one thing I do want to highlight is that it is based on real science, but the game's fun. It's like there's a lot of really cool elements that make you think about, how to do these different things on Mars. And I think we've actually struck a really good balance between sort of the fun element and also having the ability to understand the science and hopefully learn a couple more things about what it's like to live on Mars.
Hunter, while we're here, we have one question. IZI slash M is asking, will the UI be mobile efficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the game is played in your web browser, and so pretty much most devices can run the game. The mobile version of the user interface is something that we will continue to refine, but it is possible to play the resource chain game, a portion of the game on mobile devices. You can also uh, do hazards and colony development. The map specific feature is a desktop only, but it's still in the browser. So those are, yeah, we do love mobile. It's an important thing, and it's something we are refining over time.
Uh, the two-player strategy is really interesting to me, and over the week I've been trying to learn it too. I'm really, really interested to see the two strategies for resource producer and Mars trader. And I know you have a live demo for us, which is really exciting. Before we go into that live demo, though, I just want to let everyone know. Let me do a quick teaser here, guys. Please don't forget, we do have a challenge for you again this week. Just want to remind everyone that Hunter is going to announce last week's challenge winners. We do have 5 winners that we're going to announce at the end of the show. And Hunter will also address this week's challenge. But guess what? You have to stay until the very, very end of the show. That's all I wanted to say. All right, Hunter, I'm excited. Let's do this. Let's do the live demo. How about you walk us through the producer's strategy first?
Yeah, so we basically have, two strategies that are sort of larger buckets of directions you can go when you're interacting and optimizing your resource chain. So the
Yeah.
first one is really about producing resources and being self-sustaining. So with the resource producer strategy, you're really mastering sort of a well-rounded and a balanced resource chain. And so your goal is to achieve that balance so that you can get net positive resources across the chain. And so you'll be buying a little bit of each type of NFT and balancing those. And your reward is that you're going to be stockpiling rarer resources that no one else has, and also
Mm.
be able to expand your collection in some really unique ways. So I'll go ahead and share my screen now.
By the
And
way, I can't wait to talk about NFTs in the upcoming episodes. So I just want to say that. And I also
yes,
wanted to say, guys, if you're watching and if you have any questions, go ahead and put your questions in the chat box. We have moderators that are going to send those questions over to me. So ask your questions while Hunter is doing a demonstration right here. Okay, Hunter, take it away.
so this is the resource chain user interface, and my goal with this is to produce as many resources in fuel as I can. Fuel's a rarer resource in the colony. It's used to basically fuel rocket ships. And I'm doing this by producing power, which I'm producing from my fission reactor and my mega power reactor. And you can see that through that, I'm producing this amount of power, 47, and these are the running balances of resources as they're moving through the chain. So with that 47 power, that's then getting put into an ice mining rig. And that ice mining rig is taking 25 of that power and producing 60 water. And then
Mm.
that 60 water is then getting put into my fuel plant, and it's using power and water to produce fuel and oxygen. One of the cool things about Mars is you can use the atmosphere and
Mm.
water to produce fuel and oxygen through the Sabatier reaction. So a little bit
Hunter,
of
this is
science there.
real. This is real data, though, right?
Yes, exactly. All these numbers that are getting calculated here are based on those real science numbers, and so that's
Wow.
really what's cool here. And then at the top, you see that I have net positive resources across my chain. This is a much simpler chain. You can get very complex with this, but we just wanted to kind of highlight the basics of what that looks like for you guys.
Holy moly. Being a producer is such a balanced strategy, right? And you're constantly stockpiling resources in order to expand your collection, because ultimately that's what you want to do, right? You want to have a very large collection, right?
Yeah, the more ownership and sort of operational authority you have on Mars, the more you're basically building your legacy on the red planet. So, yeah, over time, if you can continue to stockpile those resources, we're going to get into colony development in another show, but that's one of the really cool ways that you can take some of those rare resources and get awesome rewards.
What's your favorite part in being a producer, if you were to choose to be a producer?
I think that there's just a satisfaction that comes from having everything self-sustaining and
Yeah.
knowing that, everything's in green and you kind of have that balance across the board. And I think that's probably my favorite thing, just tweaking all those settings to make them perfect.
And as time goes by, we're adding to these resources over time, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. The resource chain will get more and more sophisticated over time. And then also, as we add new technology to Mars, we'll be implementing that technology into the resource chain. So it's always going to stay fresh.
Okay, one last question. Sorry, I have so many questions. Um, what this is such a strategy game. What is unique, and I shouldn't say unique. What's hard about being a producer
I
in your
think the
opinion?
hardest part is balancing net positive resource production,
Yeah.
especially with the more complex equipment. Because at the beginning of the chain, when you're just dealing with solar panels and you're dealing with mobile equipment that's less sophisticated, you have less inputs and outputs to manage. But as you get into the much more complex equipment on Mars, there's a lot more inputs and outputs. And so you're doing quite a bit more deep diving into the science, understanding the resource chain, and tweaking your settings and balancing things to make sure that everything stays in line. So that's definitely the challenging part, and you can spend hours on end just kind of getting in there and figuring out the details.
Guys, we all really have to think in this game. This is such a cool experience. John is asking, hazards will be immediately included in gameplay next week? Question mark.
Yes, hazards will be included in gameplay, and that's basically what disrupts the resource chain. And I know we'll be talking about that a little bit more in a future episode, but
Yes.
those are things like dust storms and static storms and viruses that might, affect the astronauts. The realities of basically living on a planet 33.9 million miles away from Earth.
This is true. This is actually a good question too. G Shine Channel is asking why doctors not produce medicine? Maybe add them 100 medicine production option. Good question.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely look into that, and we should discuss that for sure. I know the big kind of producer of medicine is basically the medical bay, which is where the doctors work, and we figured that with the building and the equipment that's in the medical bay, it made more sense for the medical bay to be the one producing that medicine.
Yeah. Um, John is also asking, or is still the mystery resource? Any additional information on that?
Yeah, I believe with ore, that's going to be more important in construction and land in the future. So it'll definitely be coming in the game. But I'll have to kind of circle back with the team on what that feature looks like a little bit more. And we can give probably a better explanation of how ore is being utilized probably in the future.
Yeah, and I just also want to add that hazards is going to be not next week, but the following week. We're going to go over that as well. Now, uh, trader strategy. I do want to hear about that because that's my favorite. So, can you also show us the trader strategy demonstration as well?
Yeah. So with the Mars trader strategy, think about it as you're basically the master of in game sort of economic forces, and you're focused on trading specific resources on Mars. So the focus is that you'll have basically one or two or just a few resources that you really are kind of laser pointed at. And the goal is to export and trade excess supply of those resources to the blockchain when it's needed most by the colony. And if you combine this with hazards, you can really kind of maximize the effect of this strategy. So with this demo, what I'll show is I'm focusing on producing repair tokens and medicine tokens, which
Mhm.
is up here. And you can see that they're part of my strategic production. And those are important because players who need to repair items or heal astronauts from hazards really need those repair and medicine tokens. And
Mhm.
so the way that I would start the strategy is by stockpiling labor tokens, because you can see that I'm actually producing a net negative of labor tokens. So the way that I do that is I can use this transfer tokens feature over here in my profile to import labor tokens from the blockchain. And then
Mm.
those tokens are now stockpiled in my game, and I can start using those labor tokens to produce medicine and repair, because you can see that the medical bay, it utilizes engineering labor, or sorry, science labor, to run the medical bay, as well as social labor, and that's what's producing the medicine tokens. And
Mhm.
then the multi-purpose workshop is utilizing engineering labor to run and produce the resource tokens, or sorry, the repair tokens. Cargo
Mhm.
rocket ships also utilize, I believe this is logistics labor, to produce repair. And so you basically are stockpiling resources and then producing resources that will be very valuable in certain situations in the colony. And then you can export those back out to the blockchain and trade them for Marcia or directly for other resources, and basically continue to repeat that process.
I see. So it seems to me that the Mars trader strategy is very focused on a specific resource, right?
Yeah. So repair tokens, medicine tokens are good examples of this. And yeah, there's basically 16 resource tokens in the chain right now. So you can focus in on one of those. And this is more of that, like, subject matter expert on Mars.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's more complex than being a producer, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, these both have different complexities and also different efficiencies. So, one of the interesting things here is your all of the resource tokens are blockchain tokens. So you can import and export those to the blockchain using our token transfer, and
Mm.
really sort of utilize the decentralized nature of the blockchain. And that's a really cool aspect, and one of the reasons why we're building, a decentralized economy.
Uh, Thank you for that. IZI-M is asking, will there be a way to purchase resource instead of staking Marsha for resources?
So our gameplay focuses on producing resources on Mars. So the main goal of the resource chain in the game is to really be producing those. And the way you produce those is using the NFTs that you have in your collection. Now, all of the resource tokens are blockchain tokens. So outside of the game, if you want to import those tokens in or export them out, that's possible too. And so, it's possible to get those resource tokens from outside the game as well.
John is also asking, or he's saying, this was asked in beta channel by Pedro. Where will the new cards pulled from in the store V2?
So the store V2, which is one of the new pieces of in the timeline, it's one thing that we've been working on, sort of in the background, is coming from the store. We're essentially changing the way the store works so that you can purchase any item in the store, and this will allow for new players to basically come in and purchase, cards that produce power or cards that produce water. And so it's really important for new players to be able to uh, create sort of that first strategy, which is resource production from square one. And so that's really going to be helpful in bringing new people into the game. And then also it allows us to sort of measure supply and demand of different items, because the way the resource chain works now is every item on Mars produces a certain amount of resources and consumes a certain amount of resources. And then that's divided amongst all of the NFTs of that item type. And so that change is really going to help us long term ensure that as new technology comes online and as existing technology is utilized, that supply and demand is balanced.
There is so much coming up. I can't wait for us to get into NFTs. That's going to have to be a few sessions that we're going
Yeah.
to introduce NFTs with the resources. But this is so exciting. And I want to know, those who are watching, which strategy, and tell us in the chat box, which strategy resonates with you more, the resource producer or Mars trader? Hunter, which one do you think is going to be the most popular?
I think that we'll probably have a pretty even split.
What?
But I think that the resource producer is my personal favorite, and I hope more people do that, because that allows you to sort of it's just there's something satisfying
Build.
about having everything be net positive and everything kind of working and operating perfectly, whereas the Mars trader is more of that specified kind of strategy.
Yeah, and you're building more as a producer as well. And that's ultimately what we want, right? We want to build this colony out. So we need as many producers as possible, right?
Yeah, because those are the folks that are really building and managing stuff that is getting those really rare resources like fuel and construction materials and all the things that basically help us expand across Mars.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, these are all real data. So you're working with real data here and making a huge difference in the world and in colonizing the planet. Now we have a question here with sliders. When will it be operational?
Sliders will be operational next week as well. And what sliders are is there's a ratio of Martia or resources that you can utilize for every single item type. So, for instance, if I'm producing tons of power in my collection, and instead of just producing excess power, I can move some of the sliders of my power producing items to more of a Martia ratio, so that as I'm producing, it goes straight to Martia instead of power. And so it's a way to kind of fine tune the resource chain to meet your needs.
Got it. Got it. And by the way, I hope everyone has a clear view of what is a producer and what is a trader here moving forward. And by the way, that's what this week's challenge is also about. And yes, this is the time for our challenge this week. Hunter, are we ready for this yet? Do we want
I think I think we
to?
are. I'm super excited, and I also love the answers from last week.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to bring that up. But before Hunter presents the next challenge, we do, like he just said, we do need to announce last week's winners first. So before I reveal the winners on the screen, let me just give you a little refresher. Last week for the challenge, we asked you why Mars matters to you. And so many of you participated with great responses. And our crew selected 5 winners, and we have them here. Where's the drum roll? No drum roll. I'm telling you guys, I am going to have sound effects in 2 weeks. Just wait. Da da da! All right, Hunter, here they are. Why don't you announce last week's winner for us? I got them right here on the screen for you.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for submitting answers, and I'm just going to read through a couple of them because I think they're awesome answers. So thanks Super B Crypto. You said colonizing Mars could provide significant scientific, technological, and societal benefits while expanding our understanding of the universe and potentially ensuring the survival of our species. So I
Mm.
really like that because it hits on both, the reasons why we would go and also the survival of our species. Having a second planet and a self-sustaining colony on there is awesome.
Mhm.
Dabster Man also had a great answer. Humans should colonize Mars because Earth is too crowded and boring.
Yes, it
Mars,
is. Yes,
it's,
it is.
it's an interesting way to put it. Mars has plenty of space and adventure for the brave and curious. Plus, you can jump really high and make sandcastles with the red dust. Who wouldn't want that?
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. And people are going all out. Look at these images. How are you guys doing this? Hunter, how are they doing these images? Please educate me.
Yes,
This is so cool.
I love the images.
Yeah.
I have a sneaking suspicion that AI might be involved in a few of these.
Hey,
Um,
whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
but I do like the castle design there and definitely appreciate the extra effort there.
Yes. And by the way, as you guys know, you do get extra points from Ashley, our community manager. She's watching and listening. If you submit images, videos, clips, sketches, go the extra mile, you do get extra points. Can I read you my favorite right here? This is my
Yes.
favorite by Animositas. Mars represents the first chance to truly unify the global mass of humanity in a single mission and narrative. Gosh, can we put this in a book somewhere or a quote? So much of our focus is on nation states and governmental forms on Earth. Yes, it is. It's a repeat of how reaching the moon galvanized both the US and USSR, but globally. Wowzer. Animositas. I'm quoting this and framing it. This is amazing, right, Hunter?
Yeah, this is fantastic. And Mars is going to be one of those opportunities for us to really take another approach to how we can, as a society, come together and, peacefully move across a new planet and create a culture. And that's why we're so interested in those parts of the Mars process, right? The governing of the planet, the economic factors that happen on Mars, and how all that can really work together for to create basically like a thriving civilization and just a positive mark on humanity.
Yeah, and I love knowing that we're not alone, and there's so many of you out there who really do care as much as we do, and that's why we're all here. So thank you, Annie, for your beautiful and inspirational response, and thank you guys so much to everyone who participated in our challenge last week. Your answers were, I was surprised. I really was surprised, and some of them was really giving me a goosebump. So thank you, everybody. Now, I am hearing myself echoing. Um, Hunter, am I echoing? Do you hear me echo?
It sounds okay on my side. I'll go ahead and mute myself.
No, don't mute yourself. You're good. Guys, if I'm echoing, just let us know in the chat. Um, by the way, our crew, for those of you who won, our crew is going to be in touch with you for more instructions on how to collect your prize. So be sure to keep an eye on your DMs. Ashley is going to be calling you. All right. I mentioned earlier this week's challenge is going to be all about resource producers and Mars traders. So Hunter, are you ready? Should we go ahead and announce this week's challenge?
Yes.
Let's
So I want to know if you're going to be, a resource producer or a Mars trader. So share your strategy with us on Twitter. We went over a couple things in the resource chain. Love to hear more about the details of what you're planning on doing once we release gameplay.
Oh my gosh, this one is gonna be exciting. And by the way, as always, you have to follow us on Twitter first. Then you have to retweet this tweet. And this time we want you to retweet your favorite responses. I'm going to repeat that. Retweet the tweet, but you also need to retweet your favorite responses, all right? And as always, bonus points will be rewarded for higher effort. So pictures, clips, photos, sketches, movies, documentaries. We'll take it all, guys. Go big or go home, all right? We're really looking forward to your submissions for next week. And then if you're wondering what you are going to get, you see it right here. We will select, our crew will select 5 winners, and they will be announced during our next episode. And you'll be getting the Colonize Mars swag pack right here. All right, this is exciting. Hunter, anything else you want to add for everyone watching? Thank you guys for asking those questions. If you have any more questions, go ahead and shoot it in the chat for us and we'll answer them for you. Otherwise, what do we have coming up next week, Hunter?
Yeah, so next week we're going to be talking about, obviously we have gameplay that's coming out, and then we're also going to be diving into the staking, the non-custodial staking system that we've put in place. We're really excited to talk about that and how you can utilize that, and that's really the next thing. And then we'll just continue to unpack different ways to play the game. I can't wait to kind of get into all the details with you guys, and
Me too.
that'll be really fun.
Yes, me too. I can't wait for us to actually go in together and do those demos together. I want to be involved in the demos in the future too.
Totally. Yeah.
I want to be in. I have one question. We have one question, Hunter. Funk Coffee is asking, can the NFTs toggle between producing resources or Marsha?
Yes, exactly. So the sliders allow you to fine tune the ratio of producing Marsha or resources for each item. But you have to be careful, because if you over index on Marsha production, then you're going to start sliding into net negative production later in the resource chain, because you really need to make sure that you're producing as much resource as you can as you get further and further into the chain.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anything else before we go?
I think that's it. I think we covered it, and really appreciate everyone from pretty much all around the world for tuning
Yeah.
in. I love the fact that we have a global community, and even our team, I think we're representing 12 or 13 different countries, which is awesome.
We do. We have people in South America. We have
Mhm.
people in London, in Europe. We have people in the States, Argentina, was South America. We're all over the place, but that's what's very special about our space, that it's borderless, and that's what makes it special, right?
Yep.
Yes, we love you guys tuning in and supporting the mission. Hunter, thank you so much for educating us tonight on this exciting mission. I really can't wait to talk to you again in the upcoming episodes.
Yes, absolutely. Can't wait.
All right, guys. Next week, I will not be here. I'm going to be attending NFT NYC. So if you're attending, be sure to stop by and say hello to me. So I will not be hosting a live show. But Hunter, as he was saying earlier, he'll have a video for you guys on non-custodial liquidity. So be sure to tune in for that. Then the following week, I'll be back to take you on a deep dive on the topic of hazards. And you know you don't want to miss that one, right? But in the meantime, keep communications open with us on Discord and Twitter for any updates, and as we continue our mission to grow the Mars economy and help humanity thrive on Mars. Thank you again for tuning in. I'm your host, Meta Mona. Until next time.